All right, welcome back. We're going to go into kind of part two, installing our Predict Wind setup here. And as we went over in the last video, here's all of the equipment we need to install our satellite communication system. The two main components of which are the Iridium Go Exec, which is what talks to the satellites, and the Predict Wind Data Hub, which is basically all our communications goes through it. It gathers all of our data, sends it really nicely through the Go Exec, and pulls data back, be that our weather routing or updating our position on the internet so our friends and family can watch. The installation of this whole system is actually quite flexible, with one exception. This external antenna, you can use the one that's built into it, but then you have to take this up on deck every time. This external antenna has some fairly strict guidelines. The cable for it is 5 meters, and that is all you get. And they're adamant about you not extending it. So finding a place between where I want to put the exec and this antenna, I got 5 meters. 5 meters and 4 inches for the adapter cable. This wire is stiff. It does not bend very easily, especially when it's really cold out. So that'll be our biggest limiting factor. Like all electronics on a boat, if you follow all of the directions to a T, you pretty much cannot install them on a boat. The external antenna needs a clear line of sight of the sky. It can't be near anything that makes electrical noise. It should be a meter above the solar panels, and like a meter, seriously. They suggest in a lot of the paperwork to install it on the aft rail, which would be great on some boats maybe, but on my boat that's right under the solar and right next to the wind generator. So that's fairly limiting. You can install this in a wet area, but then it needs to be in a waterproof housing. So for example, if I wanted to put it in the LAS or something like that, so I could get my antenna much higher, then I'd have to put it in a waterproof housing. It can't be anywhere hot, which doesn't work great in my LAS because the engine is in there too. And if I'm putting it in the LAS, that really ruins one of my favorite features of this and one of the biggest selling points on it, which is that in an emergency, I can grab this and take it with me in a life raft. That's not happening if this is in a waterproof box that I have to, climb into the LAS, take it out, and go from there. So that's the limiting factor there. So like everything on a boat, we're going to have to make a compromise and choose the best location, if not the perfect location. So the recommended exec mounting is horizontal in this snap case that I have it in right here. So whoops, just turned it on. So it would have to be on a shelf or something like that. That's not the way I'm going to go with it. You can mount it vertically. They just don't recommend using this snap case for it because it'll probably bounce right out. It's not that easy or not that hard to get out of it. So I guess that could come apart. If you do want to mount it vertically, they suggest putting some screws in it and then putting a strap around it. Again, you're making it harder to grab in an emergency situation. The other thing, I don't really want it in the middle of my salon. I think I'd much rather have it booted up. I'd much rather have it in the nav station where the laptop will be or where I can see it charging and stuff like that. So here's my nav station, and this is really where I'd like to consolidate all my electronics and communications stuff. The VHF is here. I'd like the Iridium to be here. And, there's also a lot of other stuff that we haven't really figured out what we want to do exactly with, but we do have the big panel here that does drop down, um, and that's great. I'd like to still be able to get behind it when I mount everything in here. There are some things that get in the way. This little, I guess, bookshelf holder thing lived there, and of course sticks out just enough that you can't drop the panel down. But that's a different problem. What I don't want to do is make that problem worse when I go to mount my Iridium Go Exec. So they do have like a RAM mount style um, that you would use for like an iPad or something like that in your car. You see people's phones stuck in their little vents in the car and stuff like that. That style, but again, that would make it stick out farther than I want, and it requires like more space than I really want to dedicate to this. So the things I do have, I do want this to be visible so I can see it's charging, and I want it to be easy to grab in the event of an emergency. So not the LAS, but somewhere, like vertically over here somewhere. I want to keep the shelf above it. The antenna comes out of the top of it, or the wire does. So I can go up through here into the shelf that's above it, and then I just need to get power to it, which is a USB-C cable. Not a big deal. I've got all my power right here. So we just need to really figure out how to mount it. So if the exec is somewhere up here, then the data hub can be anywhere else in the boat, provided it's dry and within 100 meters of Ethernet cable, or within reach of the Wi-Fi from the exec to it. Probably not too limiting in our 12-meter boat. Predict wind leaves it really wide open, other than to say for best Wi-Fi from this device to your tablet or other devices, it should be mounted horizontally and located fairly centrally in the boat. So like the exec, I'd rather keep this near the nav station. It's dry, there's shorter wire runs, and it's super easy to tie into the NMEA 2000 network. And really, we're 12 meters. Wi-Fi is going to reach everywhere. It's not a big deal. Initially, I was going to put it behind the electrical panel in here, which does drop down and lands on everything. There's a string in there. But as you can see, there's kind of a lot going on in there, and it's not really ideal place to put it. I'm a little worried about interference. There are also indicator lights on it, and I'd rather not have to drop this down to be able to look at the lights to troubleshoot. So I'm thinking inside the cupboard up here would be a really good compromise. That way, if I want to see the lights or whatever, I just open the cupboard. Here it is. I can see them. Just make sure some cans or spices or whatever's going to be in there don't go sliding into it and hit the cables. The data hub needs 12 volts of power, fused at 3 amps, an NMEA 2000 drop cable. I would like to have Ethernet from the data hub to the Go Exec. You could use the Wi-Fi. And I'm going to also do Ethernet out of the hub into a nav laptop, which could also be Wi-Fi instead, but I'm going to save that Wi-Fi for hooking a tablet to it. I love the redundancy in this setup. You can join it to a hotspot from your phone or a cellular hotspot. You can join Marina Wi-Fi. You can even tether it via USB to your phone or a hotspot that way. The data hub can be set up to have up to 3 internet connections. You have the 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi, the WAN port, and the USB. It can then output data over the 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi from the Ethernet LAN port. And in addition to using your enemy A2000 position and wind and all that stuff, it also has a external GPS antenna, which I'm really hoping will shoot through the deck up to the sky rather than trying to run this thing up onto deck and get a clear picture. I'm going to go with my enemy A2000 will be good enough. So let's look into the exact antenna options. So this guy here has to be within 5 meters of this guy here. So instead of trying to run this thick, rigid cable in 17-degree weather, I have cut this string here to the exact length of the antenna cable. So this string is 5 meters. I can use it to run for practice instead of trying to do this thing. Hopefully it'll save me more time. The one thing I do have to be careful of is that this line is very pliable and I got to make sure I don't make too sharp of a bend. So really what I'm using this for is a measure of distance to see where it can go. So assuming I mount my exec up here somewhere, I'm going to bring my antenna wire up through here. Probably going to require a bigger hole than that, but pass it up through there. Here it comes down. Then I'm going to tape it there so that when I go into the next parts, I don't mistakenly pull the whole thing with me. And then have no idea how long it has to be. So in here already, I do have a hole to the LAS that was for the solar power cables. I'm going to do that differently going forward. But for now, I'll use that hole. All right, so here we are back out in the cold. We're just passing that wire or string mimicking wire through the bulkhead above the nav station, and that hole comes out right down in here. Get it? Now, I figure the wire here will come through there, run under the deck. Amazing how it can get so tangled in just a 2-second pull there. But this is about as much length as I have. So the distance to go outboard from where the hole is just about the same as it is to come inboard to where I am here, just on the way the wire bends. Deck height is about right here where my fingers are, which leaves me, well, let's see how much. 1 full arm length and then some. What I'll probably do with that is come through a gland in the deck, go up this rail, go up the bimini cover and see how high up I can get it there. Maybe put it on the outside of the bimini cover, on the top of the bimini cover, which would be up a little bit higher than the solar panels. If I don't like that, I could always just put it right here on this rail, which wouldn't be perfect because there would be some solar panels above it. But like we said before, perfect is really not an option here. We're just going to have to go with what works. So figuring out how this wire will run and where it goes is pretty much done. And honestly, that was probably the hardest part. So let's look at installing this thing. In the hopes of making the Iridium Go Exec look like it belongs, I headed home to look for some teak scrap. I do a lot of wood dashes and trim pieces for electronics upgrades, and have a bunch of offcuts. So before making a plan, I decided to see what I had. After finding some good pieces, I planed them down to a uniform thickness. I then headed back to Dockside Electronics to use the table saw to cut all the wood I had just planed down to the needed width. I could then use the router to cut the inset for the Iridium Go Exec to sit in. So back to my fancy chop saw to cut the angles. I routed out the channel in the wood in the teak here to fit the Iridium Go Exec tightly, hold it off the back of the wall a little bit so that air can get behind it, and keep it so it won't just fall out, but also it's tight enough that it won't rattle, because that would be really annoying. So I'm just going to do a couple test cuts here, make sure the angles line up. After trimming the pieces a few more times and then gluing them together, the holder was added to the various other pieces getting varnished, and it was done. While I'd love to say I drew this out and had some elaborate, well-measured plan for making a mount for this exec, the reality is I wung it a bit and pretty much based my plan on what wood I had left over from scrap, and I wanted it to look decent. I wanted it to stand off the bulkhead a bit to allow the heat sinks on the back to work, and I still wanted to be able to open the electrical panel and be able to grab this in an emergency. So culmination of it is this. You can see it's grooved so that the exec sits in it. There's a little ledge over here. I think this is going to be good enough to hold it. It does slide in and is like pretty stable in all directions. I can shake it and nothing really happens. So I'm looking at it right about here, I think. And the nice thing about that is my panel, if I needed to, which I'm sure I will need to at some point, can still open if my hand weren't in the way, but it does clear the exec. And the wiring will be easy. And the antenna cable, which we had the string right here, will go right out the top. So to make sure I like my spacing and whatnot, I'm actually going to mount this up here before I go too crazy. Just screws. It'll be somewhere, right in here, I think. My drill is up there. Come up a little bit to get it in the bottom groove. Drops right in. It's actually a lot snugger than I had even hoped, so that's great. The antenna comes out right here through that little adapter cable, which will fit up through there. Hook up to the cable. I'll actually have even more coming out the other on deck than I hoped for. So to get power to this and Ethernet to this, I'm going to have to come either down through there, or what I'll probably do is go right through this side of the bulkhead here. Now that I knew where the Iridium Go Exec was going to be, I needed to account for the wires. I decided to install a dedicated USB-C outlet for power and to add another hole for the communication cables, which I would then cover with a stainless vent cover. I used a hole saw to drill through the wood bulkhead, and as you can see, a lot of wires pass right behind where I wanted to drill, so I pushed them as far over as I could and put a piece of cardboard there for protection. I would have rathered a piece of ply, but didn't have any handy. Hole saws can be very destructive if they slip and hit a wire bundle. Since it was crowded behind the wood trim, I pre-wired the USB-C outlet before installing it, then ran the wires to the breaker for SATCOMs. Since the data hub will be on the same breaker, I ran that power cord as well with a 3 amp fuse. All right, so we have power charging to our exec. That's great. Remember, the antenna is going to go up. I do need to run Ethernet out of it, which will be second plug, third plug up. That it's going to come down, go through this clamshell, across here, back up, and then into the Predict Wind hub, data hub there. So that's about that long. Just in case I mess something up, I'll pull a little bit longer, give that a snip, and then, whoops, turn that off. That's going to go from here across. So I'm going to put some ends on that. So in this instance, I need to make 2 wires, one from the exec to the hub and one from the data hub to the laptop. If you don't want to put your own RJ45 connectors on the Ethernet cables, you can buy them in set lengths from pretty much any hardware or electronics store. The nice part of custom lengths is not having to coil up all the excess. It being winter and the boat being below the hill, it gets dark really early. Doesn't help my eyes aren't what they used to be, so please pardon the harsh but bright LED lights. Before pulling the wires too far, I wanted to make sure the visible part was the right length. So I secured that, and since I only had a white USB-C cable and a black Ethernet cable, I will have to add some sort of split tube or something to hide the 2 wires later. So now that I've got all the wires from the Iridium Exec run into behind the panel, I just got to get the remaining ones up to here, which are really just the Ethernet, and power's already there. So it has to have plenty of room to run through here without getting crushed. Come through there. Under those 2, through here, and up. Said, plug the connection from the Iridium into the WAN port. Oops, let's put that down. And then back out to the laptop from the LAN port. I'm going to also hook up the GPS antenna while I have it. I'm not really sure what I'm going to do with the antenna yet. I think I'm probably going to just put it right under the deck right here, which should be able to shoot through there fine. But we'll find out first. That was pretty long. I apologize. Hopefully I sped it up enough in editing with the computer, still learning this stuff. But what we've basically done here, we've got the Go Exec mounted, powered, and Ethernet connected to the hub there, and then the hub back to here with data for the laptop, which means we can use like the Predict Wind offshore on the laptop, or we can use the Wi-Fi from it to a tablet or something like that. A lot of flexibility with this system. I'm actually really excited for it. I've been trying very hard in this boat to keep things simple, not adding a lot of gadgets. And I really feel like this is like the simplest way I can do this. And also the most fitting for what our family wants. We want the safety features of being able to take this with us. I mean, literally all I have to do is pull the USB, pull there, and I have it in my hands. And we're off in the life raft or whatever. So that's really easy. I'm actually really excited about that. And this just fits with what we wanted. We didn't want to hook up internet. We want to be off grid of it. We want to be enjoying where we are. And Predict Wind, with all of their help and their weather, are really going to help us be able to do that. So I'm excited for it. We'll go over more of how their stuff works in the spring, and actually I know I'm going to get antsy and want to do more over the winter. I especially want to play with their anchor drag alarm and that app, because that looks really impressive. Otherwise, keep an eye out for more videos. Hit subscribe if you want to get the updates. Otherwise, just keep an eye out for Dockside pages, and I'm sure we'll link to them. But if you have any questions, let myself or reach out to Predict Wind or call me at Dockside or shoot me an email or whatever, and we'll go over it. It's really a nice piece of kit here. So I'm excited for it.